You are watching Frankly Speaking Sports, live from Charlotte, North Carolina. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an amazing episode of Frankly Speaking Panthers. And boy, what a week this is going to be. Such great news surrounding the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, the big news is this Thursday night's game between the Houston Texans. Thursday night, 8:20 p.m., in Houston, as the Carolina Panthers go for a 3-0 perfect record. Want to let you know, first of all, welcome everybody to Frankly Speaking Panthers. I want to thank all the people on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. I want to take time to also thank Tobacco Road Sports Radio, which we are on now and very happy to be on. If you want to listen to some great shows besides Frankly Speaking Sports as well, go to tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. Want to welcome my friends from the Carolina Den, Panthers Den, who are always part of the show. Thank you so very, very much for being on tonight. We are about 20 minutes away from having Mike Vaccaro. He is a columnist of New York Post, been doing it since 2002, and we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold played in New York for 3 years for the New York Jets. Obviously, Mike covered that, and we'll get his perspective on what he was like with the Jets and what he thought about the whole shebang that happened with him leaving. For those of you folks that are on several different platforms, if you take a quick second, share this to your timeline. I know we're on several Carolina Panthers websites right now, so if you can go ahead, share this to your timeline so that all the Carolina Panther fans in the nation can go ahead and watch this terrific show. But the big news today started out early, and it didn't even concern the game that is coming up this Thursday night. The big news, as you guys all know, if you haven't heard yet, Steve Smith Sr., the great wide receiver who played 13 years with the Carolina Panthers, is a nominee on the ballot for the 2022 Hall of Fame. It's his first year eligible and his first year on it. And if you look at Steve played a total of 16 seasons. That's right, 16 seasons, 13 of them with the Carolina Panthers, and just an incredible career. When you look at Steve and the things he did as a receiver and as a kick and punt returner, he was incredible. Here's a guy, 5'9", maybe 195 pounds wet. And, here's a guy that can catch the ball up high, catch the ball down low, catch it going through the middle and getting hit. I mean, he was such a small guy from a receiver's perspective. He was such a tough guy on the football field. He had 1,031 receptions, over almost 15,000 yards, 81 touchdowns. Then he had an additional 4,000 return yards and 6 more touchdowns. 5-time Pro Bowler, one of the NFL's most definitely productive receivers of the 21st century, holds many Panthers all-time leader in touchdowns, receiving yards. In 2011, he became the 35th player in NFL history to pass 10,000 receiving yards, and he played in one Super Bowl. Wanted to make sure we took the time on this show to recognize the accomplishments of Steve and congratulate him on his nominee and to be on the ballot, first-time ballot of the Hall of Fame. We wish him the best of luck on getting nominated, and once that comes up, we will definitely let you know. But the big thing everybody's talking about is this upcoming Thursday night. You know, how good are the Carolina Panthers? You know, and I'm going to tell you something, folks. This is a good football team. And people say, well, Larry, you know, first of all, for all the fans listening out there on several different platforms, I want you to understand something. Stop listening to the people that are saying, look who you played, and look who you played. The bottom line is we have a schedule given to us by the NFL, and we play those games. And the first two games of the season, we did what we had to do to win those football games. And that's played some great football. And I'm going to tell you something, guys, and I don't care what anyone tells you. You know, you don't get to the playoffs and through the playoffs without having a great defense. No team has ever won a Super Bowl without their defense coming to play. It just doesn't happen. I mean, if you think about all the Super Bowls, let's go back to last year's Super Bowl. It was the Buccaneers and the Chiefs. Okay? Everybody, and I don't want to discredit Tom Brady for anything that he's done or hasn't done, but at the end of the day, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did not win that Super Bowl because Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. They won that Super Bowl because of that tremendous defense and the way they came on at the end of the year. That's why I think the Carolina Panthers have a great chance to make the playoffs if they continue to play defensively at this high level. If you look at some of these Super Bowls, you got Baltimore. Trent Dilfer was a quarterback. What they have, a great defense and a quarterback who did not make a lot of mistakes. Trent Dilfer was not the greatest quarterback to ever play the NFL. Dan Marino was a great quarterback but never won because they never had a defense when he played on that team. You look at the Patriots vs. Seattle. It was won on a defensive play by Malcolm Butler at the 1 yard line, intercepted. Argue the fact there might have been a terrible call by Pete Carroll, but at the end of the day, it was a defensive play. You have the Rams and Titans. Mike Jones stops Kevin Dyson at the 1 yard line in the Super Bowl. Guess what? It was a defensive play that did it. You know, we talked about the Buccaneers and the Super Bowl. Even the Buccaneers' first Super Bowl they won back in 2003. It was because of that cover two and that almighty defense. Defense wins championships. Defense wins championships, and I'll say it again. Defense wins championships. And that's why this team should be excited. I don't want to discredit Sam Darnold. I don't want to discredit Christian McCaffrey and all the other guys they have surrounding them. You need a good offense to help you get there. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a good defense, you go nowhere. And if you look at this defense, it's only been 2 games, but they're number 1 in total yards allowed. They're only allowing 190 yards per game. passing yards. They're only allowing 143. Rushing yards, only 46.5 yards they are allowing right now per game. Total points, 10 points a game, and then 10 sacks in 2 games. And if I go back to last year, and I don't remember 100%, but I don't think they had a sack in the first 2 games. Now they have 10 sacks in the first 2 games. Just tremendous by this defense. And we'll stay on the defense here. But I want to remind you guys, in about 15 minutes, we're going to have sports columnist from the New York Post, Mike Vaccaro, is going to be joining us live. He covered Sam Darnold for when he was with the New York Jets. We're going to talk to him about the emergence of Sam in a Panthers uniform from the time he started and was drafted by the Jets. But you go back to this Carolina defense, and I'm going to check some messages here real quick. All right, let's move that out of the way. And I am going to put a hotline number on. If you want to go ahead and call us in, there is the number. Just remember, 1 phone call at a time. We will try to get to you, answer your Panther question best as possible. But when you look at this defense, and I talked about Reddick last week on Monday, and how great of an addition he's been to this team. He already has 3 sacks and a forced fumble in 2 games. And you add that to Shaq Thompson, who's playing lights out with Brian Burns, Justin Burrows, J.C. Horn with his first interception. Dequan Jones, a great game. Jeremy Chin. This is a swarming type defense that forces a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And I think on Thursday night, Davis Mills is really going to have his work cut out for him because, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but what a unbelievable job by this defense the first 2 games. I got a statistic for you, folks. I want you to hear this. In the first 2 games, the opposing team has been stopped 75% of the time on 3rd down by the Carolina Panthers. That's right. 24 attempts at 3rd down conversions between the Jets and the Saints, and they only capitalized 6 times. Okay? So this defense, folks, is incredible. And, as we move on to the offense on this team, I mean, what can you say about Sam Darnold? He's been lights out the first 2 games. Couple mistakes here and there. He'll wash those up. But the one thing that they're doing, and we talked about this on Frankly Speaking Panthers last week, is I said they got to win the time of possession battle. And right now, they are 2nd in the league in time of possession. And why does time of possession help, folks? The reason why time of possession helps is because when you're on the field and you're sustaining long drives, you're keeping that powerful, strong defense on the sidelines where they can get some rest. And when they finally do get out there, they can perform at a high level. To be 2nd in the league in time of possession, that means only 1 team in the NFL has done a better job of time of possession than you have. Just an incredible job by Sam Darnold. You can add that stat to the record. You know what Christian McCaffrey brings Thursday night. Christian McCaffrey, he has over 300 all-purpose yards. So, it's just an incredible job. But one of the things that it's disappointed me a little about Panther fans the last couple of weeks is get the heck off the offensive line's back. This offensive line has done more than an adequate job the first 2 games of the season. Now, it doesn't get easier. I understand that. But at the end of the day, give them credit where credit is due. Okay? This offensive line has given Sam time to throw the ball. it's giving Christian some amazing holes to go ahead and, get some good yardage on runs and then runs after catches as well. So let's go ahead, give this offensive line some credit, because this offensive line has done a very, very good job. Now, as far as the Houston Texans goes, guys, I'm going to tell you, there's not much to the Houston Texan team. And I don't want to sound weird, funny. And I got a great comment. I wish I had your names here, guys. You just have to go back and give StreamYard permission to use them. But here's a message from a Facebook user that the offensive line has done a turnaround compared to previous years. No doubt about it. They are playing at a high level. And one of the things I said to all of you fans out there that listen to my show is, when you bring a quarterback in that your team believes in, your offensive line, for some reason, automatically steps up to play better than they played in previous years. And people say, what do you mean, Larry? Well, let me give you a good example. Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl last year with the same offensive line that Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions. Okay? Same offensive line. Why did they play better for Brady instead of Winston? The reason, they believe in Brady. The reason this offensive line is playing better is they believe in Sam Darnold, and they're going to do everything they can to win. Great. And another message, we already talked about the defense and how great of a job they are. Defense is working hard and are on the way to getting it done. Jonathan, yes, Jonathan, thank you so much for listening to the show. Once again, folks, we do have a call-in number. If you want to go ahead, call in. The number is on the screen. But as far as the Houston Texans go, Davis Mills is going to make the first of his career. He came in relief for Tyrod Taylor, 8 for 18, but he only averaged 5 yards a pass. So he doesn't throw the ball deep downfield. He had a touchdown and an interception. And, he had 2 good receivers. And I say had because Brandon Cooks is terrific. Everybody remember Brandon Cooks, who played with the Patriots as well. But Brandon Cook, has 14 receptions in 2 games. Versus Cleveland, he had 9 receptions, 78 yards, and 1 touchdown. So, very, very good receiver that he relies on. His other receiver was Danny Amendola, but Danny is hurt, and it is official now that he will not play in Thursday's game. So now he's down a receiver as well. This is a team that doesn't rush well. They have Mark Ingram the second. He rushed for, I believe, 82 yards rushing versus Cleveland. They haven't rushed for over 100 yards yet this season. The thing with this team is they are good for some reason. Don't ask me why. They are 7 of 14 versus Cleveland on third down conversion. Now, what do we need to do to win this game? Okay? It's real simple, guys. First of all, play like you did last week. Okay? That would be the simple answer. What do we got to do to win next week? This week? But the one thing I would like to see, a couple of things, is he started using the tight ends a little bit more. Dan Arnold had 3 catches. I would like to see Sam throw more to the tight ends, because I think the tight ends here, if you keep going to your tight ends, you balance it with Christian McCaffrey, you go to your tight ends short, it opens up the game for Robbie Anderson, for Sam Darnold to go ahead and try throwing the ball deep. That's what it does. So when you do play action, which they do with McCaffrey, now they don't know if you're going to be going to your tight end or you're going to be shooting for Sam you're going to be shooting for Robbie Anderson. The other thing is we need to get Terrence Marshall into this offense. Terrence Marshall needs to be used more. He wasn't used that much last game. I would love to see him get involved, into that game. They did much better on third down last game. We were 8 of 15 on third down conversions versus the Saints. But I will give you the same game plan I gave you last week. If you want to win this ball game, number one, you got to win the time of possession battle. Keep that defense fresh. Sustain those yards. Sustain the clock. Manage the clock. And what's going to happen is your defense, like I said, is going to be a lot more fresher when they get out there. Number two, no stupid penalties and win the turnover battle. There is no reason in this game that they should not be able to put pressure on this young quarterback, Davis Mills. You're going to have to swarm. You're going to have to play aggressive swarming football like you did versus the Saints. And number three, J.C. Horn, man. People are staying away from him. They said, well, Larry, why are people staying away from J.C. Horn? Well, that's because the guys that he's covering aren't getting open. Those are things you don't see in the stats when it comes to J.C. Horn. You don't see the things that say about the coverage. How well is he covering his man? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you, we are on several different platforms tonight. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitch. We are on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. So lots and lots of different channels we are on. We are a couple minutes away from having Mike Vaccaro, sports columnist of the New York Post. Let's go ahead, take a 15-second station break to allow our stations to identify themselves. You are listening to Frankly Speaking Panthers on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. Sorry, I know my voice sounds a little bit hoarse here, so I do apologize. I have a habit of yelling at the TV, not realizing that some of these players can't hear me on the other side, but I do it anyway. That's what us sports fans do. But now it is my great honor, thrill, and pleasure to introduce to you sports columnist who's been working for the New York Post since 2002. Actually, that's probably some of you might be even younger than that are watching the show tonight. But let's welcome in Mike Vaccaro. Mike, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, Larry. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. First of all, I want to thank you very much for joining us on Frankly Speaking Panthers tonight. Mike, I want to ask you right off the bat because it really interests me. And, I talk to different reporters and columnists from New York. I grew up in New York for the first 13 years. I know it's hard to believe this accent didn't come from where I'm at. But the moment you heard Sam Darnold was traded, try to remember it and go back to the moment when you found out he was traded. What was your initial thoughts?
Well, it was probably best for him, frankly, because I think that he needed a change of scenery. I think, anybody who watched him play with the Jets the last 3 years realized he had some talent. He wasn't a lost cause, but it probably wasn't going to happen for him in New York, even though there was a coaching change. He'd been through too much here. And I just think that it was pretty clear that if he was going to succeed in the NFL, it was going to happen someplace else. So, and I actually thought that Sam handled himself very well here. I think he deserved a second chance, and I think it's just going to be, that's really what I thought. I thought good for him because he worked hard. He he certainly tried during his time here, and it just didn't work out. But I didn't think it was a lost cause career, and so far, after 2 weeks, small sample size, but it looks like he's taking advantage of a second chance.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, and try to go back before 2 weeks ago, because an obvious answer, yes, he's playing well now. We know he's playing well now. But do you think before that, before he started playing with Carolina, did you think the Jets let him go too soon? Or was it, I know you said it was a good move for Sam, but was it really a good move for the Jets?
Well, I think, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to answer that definitively until we see what we have with Zach Wilson here. But look, it was a new coaching regime. I think, this wasn't the general manager who picked Sam either, even though it wasn't his first year. So I think both those guys probably wanted to start over with their own guy. And Sam was never going to be their guy. So look, it's as I said, I thought Sam had a lot of talent. I think Zach Wilson's got a lot of talent too. Obviously, he's got 2 games in the NFL. It's hard to make a definitive choice with him. But I did think, look, as far as the Jets are concerned, I think they probably needed to make a clean break also. There was just a lot of bad history between the team and the player. Nothing nefarious, just, on the field, they just didn't have a lot of success together. And it just seemed like it was probably going to be the best thing for both teams. The Jets may rue that, depending on what happens with this quarterback. But, I think it was probably for the best, and I think it'll probably be borne out that it was the best thing for both the quarterback and for the team.
Yeah, and did they ever think about, you bring a new staff over, the staff doesn't know the quarterback that well. Did they ever in the wildest dream think that maybe the quarterback situation wasn't really a quarterback situation, but it might have been the pieces around the quarterback were not all there? They didn't have a running game in the 3 years that I remember why Sam was there. They didn't have the greatest receivers because Robbie Anderson left for Carolina. And I'm not here to put blame either way, but couldn't have been also that, everybody says it was Sam, but isn't there a good possibility that this might have been an issue bigger than Sam and could have been an issue with the personnel around the team?
No, I think it absolutely was. He was playing on a terrible team. I don't think a lot of Jets fans who watched Sam play blames him primarily for what happened to him. I think most Jets fans understand that. Look, he didn't have forget Christian McCaffrey. He didn't have anybody 2/3 of the player of Christian McCaffrey, and obviously you lost Robbie Anderson. The team that was around him last year when they threatened to go 0-16, was a genuinely horrible team. It was no accident that they were losing all those games. They were a terrible team. And he was part of that team. He was. Look, did he play well? No. Would it have mattered if he had played at his absolute maximum best for his entire time with the Jets? Would his record have been that much different? Probably not, because there's only so much one guy can do, which is the reason why I think so many people thought, and why I think that as far as he's concerned, he was better off just making a clean break, starting somewhere else where there was at least some personnel around him. And look, and as far as the Jets are concerned, look, it's just, I think what they wanted was an absolute fresh start, new coach, like I said.
Yeah.
The general manager wanted to get his own guy. They really liked Zach Wilson. I think ultimately at the end of the day, they made a determination that they thought that Zach Wilson's ceiling was higher than Sam's. Now, they may be proven right, they may be proven wrong, but that's what they came to the conclusion. All of that, plus the fact that I think they just realized that on both ends, it was probably just for the best to move on, and that's how we have Sam as a Panther and Zach Wilson as a Jet.
Yeah, Mike, listening to you talk, it seems like, you talk about how good and how well Sam handled himself while, under the conditions in New York. And I've heard you say a couple of times it was better for him. I've heard you say that quite a few times to go somewhere else. What that tells me is you obviously saw some good things in Sam Darnold that told you somewhere else he may be a good quarterback. What was those things that you saw where you said, maybe with a change of scenery, this guy may do well?
When he had time, he could throw the ball wherever he wanted to. His arm is, no one will ever doubt the strength of his arm, the accuracy of his arm. He understands. He understands. He makes bad decisions sometimes, but I think like when he was playing with the Jets, it was impossible not to make bad decisions because when you have about 0.7 seconds to get rid of the ball, I mean that's going to inspire one terrible decision after another. He has good tools. I mean, he's got a good head on his shoulders. He reads defenses pretty well. But again, I mean, that team was so abjectly awful. The coaching he was getting was terrible, and the players he was around, weren't anything special. It was just it was a perfect storm to just not be successful. But you can tell. Look, 2 years ago, his second year, he actually had a pretty good year. He had a winning record in the games he played in. He got hurt that year, but he had one of his best games ever in a game against the Giants. And if you're going to have a good game, that's a game people kind of remember. And the Giants were terrible also. The Giants have been as bad as the Jets the last few years. So you were playing a team that was basically the Jets' equal. So he had some time to throw the ball. He had, he had time to be able to figure out, where to get the ball, who to get the ball to, and it showed. And he played a great game. The Jets won that game. So I mean, look, I think the things that you've seen with Sam the first two games are things we saw in spasms over the course of 3 years. Right. But it just was, it was a situation where the Jets are in a complete and utter rebuild. And I almost think it would have been unfair to Sam to ask him to be a part of this, to devote a fourth year to, what essentially is going to be a lost cause year, especially if they weren't sold on him being the guy that they were going to invest and make their long-term answer at quarterback, which they certainly weren't.
Mike, you hit on it briefly at the beginning, but I know you probably had several conversations with Sam throughout the course of his career as a New York Jet. What type of person was Sam? I mean, we know as a football player and what the New York media can do to you, and you said he handled it very well. In the conversations you had with Sam, I mean, I've never heard Sam say anything, at least in an interview, bad about his teammates. He never knocked his teammates. He always seemed like he took responsibility when things went wrong. In the conversations you had with Sam, what was he like?
Good guy, very good guy, very bright guy, funny, and New York never overwhelmed him. I mean, I don't think that he was run out of town here. I mean, and he certainly wasn't intimidated by whatever there is to be intimidated by New York, whether it's the press, whether it's the size of the city, whether it's the intensity of the fans. I don't think he was ever intimidated by that. I mean, that was never his problem. Just a very engaging guy, a guy who I think understood, where his place was, and a very popular guy among his teammates. I mean, he was a guy who his teammates to a man, said, they went out of their way to say, this isn't Sam's fault. This isn't on Sam. This is on all of us, especially last year. And, a lot of times it's easy to kind of hang all your problems on the quarterback, and his teammates never did that. And I think that's a testament to the kind of guy that Sam Darnold is.
Are you surprised? I know it's only 2 games, Mike, and you can't judge a season by the course of 2 games, but are you surprised that Sam is playing as well as he is through the first 2 games?
Well, not at all. I expected him to play well against the Jets because the Jets aren't very good. So, I mean, and plus, I mean, look at all the other factors involved. But the Jets were the kind of team that Sam was when he was playing for the Jets, a team like the Jets was a team he generally had good games against. I mean, they didn't really get after him very much. I mean, they got to him a couple of times. He made the one mistake with the handoff, but other than that, I mean, he was able to kind of dictate the flow of the game, and when he's able to do that, he's awfully good. So. I can't say I didn't watch the game last week with the Saints. I mean, I know the Saints obviously pummeled the Packers, but they had some absences last week, I know. So, it might have just been a perfect storm. I mean, you look and you got, 2 home games in a place where I think that they're welcoming to him. That certainly didn't hurt. And the fact is that he's got weapons around him. And, I think the notion always was that if you give this guy guys to throw to, guys to hand the ball to, he was going to be okay. And the Jets never did that. The Panthers have. I think he'll probably have a really good game on Thursday. I mean, I really would think so. Look, I mean, you look at their schedule. They got, obviously the beefy part of their schedule is still to come, and it'll be interesting to see, what happens then. But I'm not surprised. I mean, like I said, I mean, I thought he was good. I thought he had talent. I thought he had, a really good makeup for a quarterback. I think he was just in a terrible situation. I mean, we keep going back to the same thing, and I sound like a broken record, but I mean, if you watch enough Jets games over the years, you know how bad that team is, and you know how bad that situation is, especially for a young quarterback. I mean, it's just a terrible place to try and, gain your footing in the league, and that's what they asked him to do,
Do you think Joe Douglas is a good GM?
I think he's, the jury is out on him. I mean, look, I mean, his draft picks in this draft and next draft have to hit, because the thing that his predecessors were all terrible at was drafting. I mean, they just the Jets. If you just take a close look at their drafts the last couple of years, they've been beyond brutal. And that's the way a team like the Jets has to build. You've got to build an infrastructure with young players before you can figure out the holes you need to fill with free agents and trades and so forth. And that's part of the reason why it's been 10 years since they've been in the playoffs. I do think Douglas knows what he's doing. I think he made a good hire in Robert Saleh. I think he's a good coach. I think I think Zach Wilson's going to be a good quarterback. I don't think he's going to be ripped necessarily for Sam Darnold. We're trading Sam Darnold unless the Panthers win the Super Bowl this year. Then of course all bets are off. That's just the way it goes. I do think he's good, but I mean certainly he's got there's a lot of stuff we have to see before we can make a definitive call on what kind of a GM he is.
Let me ask you an off-the-wall question, Mike. Both guys. Zach Wilson. Sam Darnold. If Sam was to sit down for about 10 minutes with Zach Wilson and talk about his first 3 years in the NFL, what kind of advice do you think you would give Zach Wilson?
Rely on your teammates. Listen to your teammates more than you listen to anybody from the outside. Don't worry about the big bad New York media. I think the big bad New York media, that whole issue is overblown anyway. Don't let any of that affect you. And don't let anybody tell you that you're not as good as you think you are. I mean, I think keeping confidence is the hardest thing for a quarterback to do, especially when you're not getting great results. And look, I mean, Sam didn't get great results here. Whether it's whether you choose to blame him or not. As I said, I don't. But whatever. I mean, the record is what the record is. I think that's what he would say, is to never lose faith that you're good enough to play in this league, regardless of what the week to week says, because it's more than just. I think one of the things you learn as a quarterback in the league pretty quickly is it's more than just how you play is going to determine how your team does. And I think that's something that a really valuable lesson that he can pass along.
Yeah, we're talking to Mike Vaccaro, sports columnist of the New York Post. Is it fair to Zach Wilson? And let me explain what I'm going to try to ask this the right way, Mike, and I think you'll know where I'm going with this. It's no secret to you or me that the Jets aren't going to win anytime soon. So the results of wins and losses for the Jets aren't going to be there. Is it unfair to Zach Wilson that he's going to be compared to what Sam Darnold does in Carolina?
Unfair, probably. Look, I mean, but it's inevitable. I mean, the fact of the matter is that Sam was the quarterback here before him. He's starting quarterback in the league, so it's inevitable that's going to happen. I mean, I know Jets fans want to put that out of their mind, and I understand why they do. I mean, it's not something you want to think about. You certainly don't want to. You don't necessarily want to root against Sam. I don't think that's what any Jets fans are doing. I think they all wish him well. But look, I mean, it's inevitable that, over the course of a year, over the course of 3 years, over the course of 5 years, if Sam winds up being the better quarterback, that's going to be something that's going to be a storyline. I mentioned that in the column the other day here, and some people got jumped on me for doing that so quickly. But I mean, to me, I'm not making any final determinations about Zach Wilson. But the reality is that as long as Sam Darnold is out there in the league as a starting quarterback, it's going to be a natural comparison, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Now, we talked about some of the things he's done well and some of the things he didn't do well when he was in New York. Do you still think Sam Darnold has the ability to be a top-notch quarterback in the NFL?
Absolutely. I think he's got the arm. I think he's got the savvy. I think he's a confident guy. I mean, even when he shouldn't have been confident, probably with the Jets. I mean, I don't think he ever lost his confidence in his abilities. Now, he might not have played with a lot of confidence, but I think that's two different things. And look, I mean, what he's got. He's on a better team. He's on a team that plays to his strengths, that allows him to not have to be the man. Having a guy like McCaffrey is a huge thing because he gets a lot of the quarterback attention as a running back. So there's that part. There's that aspect of it that he doesn't have to worry about, and he's got weapons to throw to, and all of those things. I mean, I like I said, I mean, change of scenery was a big deal, but I mean, I think actually finding an agreeable place for him to play was number 2 on that list, and I think he really has. I mean, it would not surprise me if this isn't. I get it. I mean, maybe we're all singing different tunes in 6 weeks after we see a full 8 games of Sam Darnold in Carolina, but it doesn't surprise me what he's done, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's successful there, because I always thought, I wasn't one of these guys who tried to run him out of town. I thought, that the Jets could have decided to retain him and still done what they wanted to do. I mean, that's not what they did, but I really believe that, and I still believe that.
How much fuel does it add to the fire when he throws a deep touchdown pass to Robbie Anderson?
Well, that's a double sword right there for Jets fans. I mean, they're still hurting because they didn't retain Robbie Anderson. And, a lot of things might have been different last year if they would have kept him around. It might have felt differently about Sam. Might have felt differently about last year's team. I mean, I'm not saying they would have gone 10-6 instead of 3-13 or 2-14, whatever they finished. But it's the Darnold to Anderson thing is going to be something that's going to stick in their craw for as long as they're able to see it. And I mean, it's a part of the problem is that we didn't see as much as we probably should have when they played together, because the Jets weren't put together very well, and so they didn't figure that out the way that the Panthers are figuring it out. I mean, obviously the whole situation with the Panthers, top to bottom, is a better situation than the Jets were the last couple of years.
Yeah. Speaking of the Jets, I have a fan on the text line, but I'm going to paraphrase the question so it sounds a little bit more professional. They said, do me a favor, ask Mike, what do the New York Jets need to do to get this thing turned around?
Well, I mean, it's one of the most overused words in sports, and I know we all hate it, but I mean, their culture there has been so terrible for so long. I mean, you're talking about 10 years of just one losing season after another, one hopeless environment after another, terrible drafts, terrible personnel, terrible luck, which is all part of it, I think, bad coaching. I mean, it's been a real potpourri of awfulness here. What they need is a guy to say enough. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why Jets fans are so hopeful with Robert Saleh, because, I mean, he came from a winning environment. He seems to have a winning attitude. He obviously needs players in order to be able to coach him up. But I mean, what you desperately needed was a culture change. I mean, the saying that's used around here a lot is "same old Jets," and Jets fans hate that. And they're the first people to jump on it and say, "Look at the same old Jets." When you can finally stop saying "same old Jets" around here 13 and 14 times a year, I think that's when it's going to start going the other way.
Mike, I'm looking at my wall, and you can't see it. It's on the other side. I'm looking at 3 pictures that I've had up for I can't tell you how many years. Signed autographs, by the way. Richard Todd, Jerome Balcom, and Wesley Walker. They're all looking right at me. So I do remember when the Jets were good. They had some good teams back then. But
they had some explosive offenses,
Yep. Last question I'm going to let you run just out of more interest and curiosity. AFC East. Who wins that?
I think the Bills do. I know they stumbled out of the gate, but they looked awfully good last week, and I just think they're loaded. I think they're loaded on both sides of the ball. It'll surprise me if the Bills aren't in the Super Bowl this year. That's how good I think they are. I get it. I mean, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. The Ravens looked great last week, and up and down that conference, there are some intriguing teams. But to me, the Bills, it's the Bills' conference to lose. It's certainly the Bills' division to lose. And I don't think it's going to be close. I think they win that division by 2-3 games.
Yeah, especially in that division. I agree with you. I picked them to win it as well. Well, listen, Mike, I want to thank you so very, very much for taking time out of your schedule to join us on Frankly Speaking Panthers tonight.
Hey, it was great talking to you, Larry. Thanks for having me on.
All right, buddy. Be safe.
Take care.
All righty. That was Mike Vaccaro of the New York Post, sports columnist since 2002. Ladies and gentlemen, for all of you that are on different platforms right now, please feel free. We got about, I believe it's about 14 minutes left in the show. Go ahead. There's a call-in number where you can call in. You can get on the air. We will answer the question if you want to talk some Carolina Panther football. If you have anything else you would like to talk about, related to the NFL, we'll try to get to that as well. But we are a little less than 24 hours away from the Thursday night game between the Panthers and the Texans, a game which I believe we should be able to dominate. But, there's a reason we play the game. This is a game we can't go into and take it lightly, because those are games you end up playing poorly in. This is an away game. It's tough to win away games in the NFL. So we got to go in there and play with the same intensity. They won't have the Carolina crowd, this great, great crowd that we've had the last 2 weeks. But we're going to have to be loud here. Going to have to watch it on the NFL Network. We're going to have to get out to the sports bars and cheer this team on, because if we win tomorrow night, folks, listen to this. We are 3-0. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play out the LA Rams on Sunday on the West Coast, which I am predicting the Buccaneers to lose that game. I think that'll be the Buccaneers' first loss of the season. So you got the Buccaneers and the Rams at 4:25 p.m. on Sunday. As we go down the list, you got the Falcons playing the Giants, which the Giants will probably win. And then I'm looking for the Saints are playing the Patriots, so good chance the Saints prevail over the Patriots. So that's the way the NFC South. The Rams playing the Bucs, the Giants playing the Falcons, and the Saints playing the Patriots. We got about 10 minutes left in the show, folks. I saved it some comments. I saved it for allowing time for you guys to call in. But, I've said it once and I'll say it again. And you even heard Mike say it, yeah, you played the Saints who are better. You played the Jets week one, they're a good team. We don't make the schedule. We play the schedule. And a win is a win in the NFL. Doesn't count no differently if you beat the New York Jets or you beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At the end of the day, a win is a win. A schedule is put in front of you, and at the end of the day, it's your job to play that schedule and win the games that are on your schedule. That's what the Carolina Panthers are doing. Let me see if I can pull up not sure if I have it here in front of me. Let's see if I can get it. Carolina Panthers 2021 schedule. Yeah, when you look at the Panthers after this week, next week they play the Cowboys. And I'll tell you something, I don't want to look ahead, but that, I think, we go 3-0 and we go into Dallas. Dallas is beatable. I mean, Zeke Elliott is not playing great this year. That Pollard guy looked pretty good. So you got, if you look at this, you got the Panthers play the Texans, Cowboys, Eagles, Vikings, Giants, Falcons, Patriots, and then they play the Cardinals on November 14th. I mean, I don't want to get too overexcited yet, folks, but this is a schedule that is very, very favorable for the Carolina Panthers. But you have to play one game at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time. And you have to, the only game that's important to you is the one in front of you, the one you're playing that week. For example, this week it's the Texans. We are thinking Texans until after that game is over tomorrow night. Then we'll have 10 days to think about the Dallas Cowboys. But we have to go into Reliance Stadium in Houston, Texas at 8:20 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, and we have to play top-notch defense. We have to throw the ball around. We can't just use Christian McCaffrey. We're going to have to spread it out, which I think Sam has done a pretty good job. He's been averaging using 7 different receivers. We know what McCaffrey's going to bring to the table, but we need Shaq Thomas tomorrow night. We need J.C. Horn. We need Burris. We need Burns. We need all those guys playing good, solid defense. We have probably one of the toughest front sevens on the defensive line in the league. Our offensive line needs to keep coming out, playing the same way they did, opening up the holes for Christian and protecting Sam Darnold. Sam needs to continue to play mistake-free football. He made a dope head move the other day when he threw that interception or tossed it or pushed it or whatever you want to call it. Those are things he can't do, but hey, let's not knock the guy. He's human. He's allowed to make a mistake. But at the end of the day, if Sam Darnold and the rest of this team plays as well as they've been playing, I think it's inevitable that they start the season at 3-0. Love to get comments if anybody wants to leave some on the text line. I've been posting some of them. Let's go ahead, take a quick 15-second station break to allow our stations to identify themselves. You are listening to Frankly Speaking Panthers on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm going through some of the messages here. I'll tell you, a lot of people fired up in the Carolina area. We have about 10 more minutes if you want to go ahead and call in the number on the screen. That's 813-922-910, or you can leave a comment under the comment section, and we'll get to it immediately. We've opened up the phone lines so that you can now call in. Don't be shy. Also, if you can do me a favor, share this to your timeline. Had a lot of people complimenting us on our Twitter channel, which is at Larry Frankus. That's FRANKUS. If you go ahead and let's go ahead and put that up a second. There it is. You can go ahead, become a member of our Twitter. We're on YouTube under Frankly Speaking Sports. We are on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings, 11 a.m. on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. So if you're not a member of their website. It's Tobacco roadsportsradio.com. And also join Frankly Speaking Sports on Facebook. Want to let everybody know that Monday night on Frankly Speaking Sports, what a great show. By then, we are thinking that the Atlanta Braves will at least clinch a playoff spot, and it is a great honor, thrill, and pleasure to announce here that it is official that we will be joined live on Monday night, beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, by the voice of the Atlanta Braves. Chip Carey will be coming on to speak with us. So we're looking real forward to that. Once again, Chip Carey will be coming on Monday night to talk some Atlanta Brave baseball after we recap the Panthers game. But ladies and gentlemen, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing run the first two games. I think Matt Rule, Joe Brady, you got to give Joe Brady a lot of credit. Why we wrap up the show? When you look at Joe Brady, he was at LSU. Look at what he did with Joey Burrows. Joey Burrows was nothing. And then all of a sudden he just blossomed his last year into a star quarterback, and now he's playing with the Cincinnati Bengals. He takes Sam Darnold, who didn't have anyone working with him in New York, and he takes him and he's built his confidence up, and look at the results after the first two games. And then what can you say about Snow, the defensive coordinator on this team? Doing a great job. I know we're giving all the players a lot of the credit, and the players deserve it, but let's forget Matt Rule and that staff. The only question we have right now is our kicking game. How good is our kicking game, and how good will it remain? Are they going to have a short leash on Gonzalez, or are they going to allow him the opportunity to stay on if he misses a couple? The one thing you do also need, and I talked about a great defense, you got to have a kicker that makes field goals. So I'm interested, but the best way to handle that situation, and one more thing that we need to do in order to win this game Thursday night, is we have to increase our touchdown percentage when we get in the red zone. Let's not rely on 3 with a field goal. Let's get the 7. That way we only have to rely on 1 with the extra point. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all of us here on Frankly Speaking Sports, we want to thank Mike Vaccaro for joining us tonight. He's a sports columnist since 2002 at the New York Post. Great guy, had a lot of good insights on Sam Darnold. Make sure you go back and share this with your friends and let them hear this great interview. And we will be back with you on Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, as we will go ahead and recap the Panthers game versus the Texans, and then we would talk some Atlanta Braves baseball. The season is winding down. They're looking good in the NL East, and we get to be joined by the voice of the Atlanta Braves, Chip Carey. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a good night, a better weekend, and we'll see you Monday night right here on Frankly Speaking Sports.